Hello and welcome again to another episode of One Starfish, where our mission is to change the world one starfish or one person at a time. As always, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, share. Thank you to all of you that are doing that. Helps get the word out. We got some amazing guests on this show. Today, I'm really excited for our guest. Matt Segal is in New York. He's run a law firm for the last 5 years on his own. He's been in the, as a lawyer since 2008. We're going to get into that story. Family guy. And I'm just excited to learn. I don't know the whole story behind Matt, so I'm excited to learn. So thanks for being on, Matt.
No, thank you so much for having me. I truly, truly appreciate it. I've kind of, we've been in the same, entrepreneur group for a while now. I've for sure admired you from afar. We haven't got to know each other so well yet, so I'm really looking forward to this. And that's true. Just, I always follow your posts. I always see what you're saying, and it's true admiration. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. The pleasure is all mine for having you. So let's go back, because I'm excited to go through this. What got you into law? Tell us a little bit of your upbringing. What got you into it? How was that? Because it's a hard industry to be in. I'll be honest. From what I hear, it's a hard industry to be in. So tell us a little bit of why you got into it and how it's been.
Yeah, for sure. And so, what we were talking about before is I appreciate that your podcasts are a little bit,
shout out to your
shorter
mom,
than some. So this can take a long time, and I could talk for the rest of the podcast. So we're going to try to limit it and give sort of the cliff notes, which I once said before, and it still went forever. So, real quick, born and raised in New York, from Queens, New York City, and then I was basically raised and grew up on Long Island. My father was a lawyer, my uncle's a lawyer, my older cousin's a lawyer. I now have two younger cousins that are lawyers. So my grandparents have been, asking for a doctor for a while. We do have now a doctor in the family, but needless to say, a lot of lawyers in the family. So I grew up really not wanting to necessarily be a lawyer. I knew I wanted to make a lot of money. I was a finance major in college. And, one day I told my dad, I'm like, I don't think I'm going to, pursue a law career. And he's like, you're crazy, because you could always do whatever you want after. You might as well get a law degree and see what you can do with it. So that's what I did. I'm trying to move it quickly. So, all right. So I then graduated from college. I went to a law school, which was not a top law school at all, which is sort of relevant to my story because, I did really well in law school. And yet, because I didn't go to one of these top law schools, I was not hired at one of these big corporate firms who are paying, I usually say like $250,000 right out of law school. I was, offered way, way less than that at a job that I started. And so it was hard to get a job. This was 2008, 2009. The economy wasn't so great. I was about to start a job in a field that I did not want to do, landlord-tenant law, which, again, you're in an overstuffed courthouse in one of the city boroughs. You're either kicking someone out of their apartments or trying to beg a landlord to let them stay. And it was definitely not something I wanted to do, but we got to make some money and pay the bills. So I was about to start that. Lo and behold, that weekend when I'm, clothes shopping for work clothes, I get a call from a woman who said their father wanted me to interview with them. So that weekend, I went to his house on Long Island, which turned out to be a compound, 7-figure estate. He turned out to be a pretty famous, well-known lawyer. He was 86 when he interviewed me. So right away, I'm like, all right, this is a little different than normal. And he said, listen, I want you to come on, and I'm going to set you up in the Empire State Building. You're going to have your own firm. Made a lot of big promises, showed me all the textbooks that he had written. So in my field of law that I'm in, personal injury, he literally wrote the textbooks of how to be a trial lawyer. Every top lawyer worked for him. So I researched that. I said, let's do this. I'm game. So to make a long story short, I stayed with him for 3 years, and it was me and him and his wife. So they were 86 when they hired me, and I'm reverse commuting from the city, and I'm working for this, very old man. And we don't really have cases, so to speak. So I thought I was going to be, working for a firm. It was a little different, but apparently he was our only client. So I was doing a firm breakup for him. He was breaking up with his partner, and I was handling a medical malpractice case where he was the client. And that was it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I wasn't going to court. I
basically hired you to be his lawyer.
Exactly. To be his lawyer / sort of do odds and ends for him. That was a little not what I thought I was going to be doing. And so, again, to make a long story short, it was tough to work for him because he's known as a really stern, really, matter of fact guy. But we had a really unique, almost a really good friendship when I worked for him. And to make a long story short, the two things that I really learned from him are preparation, because he was literally famous for this. If you worked for him, you would understand that there's people that prepare, there's people that over prepare. And then there was this man where, every page of every record that we ever needed to review was reviewed to the letter. So if there was a symbol on that we didn't understand, we were spending a month talking to every expert in the field of that, that medicine to understand what that was. And at the time, I thought it was overkill. It was ridiculous. We know what it is. We could Google it. We could look it up. What are we doing here? We're spending weeks trying to get a document out that now, would probably take me a day or even a couple hours. And, what I really learned from him was that over preparation is the key to everything, because now when I'm in the courthouse and an issue pops up that I'm not, that we didn't anticipate, because we were over prepared on all the facts and everything, we're ready to go on that. So I really can't stress enough how much he taught that lesson to me. And the other thing that I took away with it was networking, because he was so highly respected and he was the first president of the New York Trial Lawyers Association. I think they're maybe on 50 now, and he was number one. Goes to show how old he was. In and out of his house were some really high level attorneys, former past presidents of that Trial Lawyers Association as well. So as a young guy, I was meeting these people. And at the time, you don't think it is, it's going to be relevant. But like everything, like I think we've both learned, is that it's all about the long game. Everyone gets caught up in what can you do for me now? What am I getting from this now? But those seeds were planted. And when I started my firm later on, and throughout that process, all these connections that I made turned out to be fruitful. So those were two things I learned from him. After about 3 years, I said, listen, I gotta go. I gotta get in the courthouse. I gotta learn. And so I then started at a firm where it was a high volume practice, meaning a lot of cases, very low customer service. The clients had no clue what was going on. So from this guy, I learned what not to do. Right. So I learned this is not he was very successful. He makes a ton of money, but I would never want his life because of the way he treats his employees and his team members and his clients. Mm-hmm. From there, I then went to a new firm where this guy saw me in court, and he's like, when you're ready to learn for real, come to me. So from that firm, I learned everything about how to be a great lawyer, how to really work up cases and know what's important. But I wasn't doing trials, and I knew that trials were the difference maker in my field. So I think in every field, there's probably one or two skills that is the difference maker from the pack and the top people. And usually the top, the pack is scared to pursue those fields, those skills. And in my field, that's being a trial lawyer, because a lot of people are scared to get in front of a jury and a judge when the spotlight's on you and fight. So I wanted to do that. At this firm, they weren't letting me do that because it was a small firm and they had a trial lawyer. So I left and I went to another firm, another high volume practice, where I learned a lot of what not to do, but I also was doing trials. And so I started doing trials and practicing and really gaining those skills, and I got pretty good at it. And so fast forward a couple years later at that firm, this is where it gets interesting. We get into office one day, and the front page of the New York Law Journal is how our boss's license was suspended. And because he was the only owner, the 100% owner of the firm, all of our clients needed to get a new lawyer because he was no longer allowed to legally represent them.
Oops.
And so we had a conversation with his lawyer. When I say we, I mean the other attorneys there. And we said, what's going on? And he just said, the clients need to find a new lawyer because he can't do it. And by the way, a lot of firms have started like this. When something crazy like this has happened. Now, at that point in time, this was right when Arate had started. So, I already had the entrepreneurial juices. I'm having these, weekly lessons, and I'm like, I got to do something. So that was before this happened. And so before that happened, I'm calling my friends. I'm like, hey, your firm doesn't have a personal injury practice. Maybe I can be that guy. The problem with that is that you can't, in my firm, in my field, if you sign up a case today, you're probably not getting paid on that case for 2, 3, 4 years. So how can I start from zero and pay my bills? So I needed something to happen. And lo and behold, when this happened, this lawyer wasn't calling the clients and saying, you need to find new attorneys. So I thought that was ridiculous after a while, because they should know. And when they would call in, I would let them know. And one by one, they're saying, Matt, you're the only guy who ever talks to us. You're the only lawyer who ever tells us what's going on. We want to go with you. And it clicked. And I realized this is the opportunity that I've been waiting for pretty much my whole life. And so I started taking buses, subways into, the heart of the Bronx and Brooklyn, where it's not the greatest neighborhoods. And, lo and behold, even this week, an attorney said a client said I really gained his respect by doing that. And, we signed up some cases that people that wanted to come with us. I worked my network to see where I can get good office space, because I understand the value of going to an office where you feel great about going there, as opposed to just maybe kind of renting a dungeon looking office somewhere. Yeah, exactly. And so I came to some agreements with other attorneys that I know where it's mutually beneficial for all of us. And in December of 2018, I started Segal Law Firm, and we've been growing and up and running since then. So I hope I didn't take too long, but that's sort of the Cliff Notes version of, starting out, not wanting to do landlord-tenant law, taking the leap to working for an 86-year-old man from his house, and then learning from different types of law firms, whether it's what not to do or what to do. And then when the opportunity came, if anyone listening, if they could take one nugget from this, it's to just be ready when your opportunity comes and pounce on it, because you never know when it's going to happen again, and you never know what's on the other side of that opportunity. And for me, my life and my business have never been better since when I did that.
Awesome. I love it. So I'm curious. I got a question for you.
Sure.
How did the 86-year-old guy know about you? Why did he call you?
It's a great question. So
go back
I'm one of these guys that send my resume to, 200 firms, those big law firms, and didn't hear back. Like, you always hear these stories, and they typically tend to be from super successful people. And I hope I could follow those lines where I sent my resume out, nobody responded, and that's it. So then I started sending my resume out to, I guess, more realistic people. And I guess somehow his daughter got my resume. She worked for him as well. And she called me in. And I guess it's just from shooting out resumes. I don't even know. That could have been a Craigslist.
How many resumes would have you shot out then?
So, it was not easy. I did a mass mailing one where I'm stuffing envelopes at my house. And that I swear, it must have been 200 to those big corporate firms, which thank God now nobody responded to, because I don't think that was for me. And then after that, maybe 40 or 50 more to firms like.
About 250 resumes. Yeah.
Oh,
so I really want anyone listening to really pay attention to that, because I think that's a key right there. A lot of times people give up before they hit gold. There's 3 feet from gold. 250 no's is a lot of no's. And so to get one yes. Yeah. And a lot of listeners are in sales, or they're running a business, and that involves talking to people or whatever. How many people are you willing to talk to help your dreams come true? Where do you quit? Do you quit at 100? Do you quit at 150? Do you quit at 20? Where do you quit? Because if you had quit at those numbers, you wouldn't be where you're at right now, and you wouldn't have the story that you have. So never quit and run the numbers. Life is a numbers game. So run the numbers. So I just wanted to kind of dig into that, because I figured it was something like that. So really cool. So I'm going to dig into something a little controversy. You're a lawyer.
Sure.
And a lot of people don't like lawyers. They like them because they need them, but they don't like them because they think they're slimy. That's kind of a common, I would say misconception, but common conception out there. How did you handle that? And did you ever go through that from like people in your circle? And what are your thoughts on that? Actually being in the game for this long, what do you see out there? And what makes the difference between someone that's maybe is actually worthy of that title and someone that isn't?
Yeah. So thank you for that question. Because I think it's important because, it 100% is a misconception. And first I'll start out and I'll say, are there bad lawyers out there? Are there slimy lawyers? Are there lawyers who file frivolous lawsuits because they want to make money? 100 million percent. And, I mentioned to you beforehand, I'm right now involved in a litigation where, my wedding was supposed to be the week that COVID happened. And it was a national emergency was declared. And a couple of days later, and, we were getting cancellations by the minute. And obviously we couldn't go forward. And just to make a long story short on that, the venue is suing us for breach of contract, despite, executive orders saying that we couldn't do that, right? That we couldn't even go forward if we wanted to. And so I'm confident that if this lawsuit were ever going in front of a judge or jury for a determination on the merits, anyone would say, are you kidding me? Get the hell out of here. This is a bullshit lawsuit, pardon my French. But the reality of the situation is that, they're a company, they're making money. So they have budgeted for this and it's an expense for them. And I'm here and, my family's here as individuals. So in that field, you have to pay hourly to attorneys. So they know that. So is it worth it for us to spend all this amount of money to defend it when, we could potentially settle it for a little bit less money while knowing the whole time that it's a bullshit lawsuit? So I get that. And I'm dealing with that personally. But that still doesn't taint the system for me because, I would say 95% of the lawyers are not like that. And again, there's doctors that are shady. There's unfortunately policemen that are like that. There's teachers that are doing things that they shouldn't be able to do. So, I think lawyers may get a bad rap because it's probably affecting, business people, or it affects people in their pockets more than anything else. And that's really where things come to a head, so to speak. But I could speak for myself when I say I don't do that. We only, my clients in my field, they're coming to me at the worst time in their life. So they've been seriously injured. They can't work some of the time. They can't pay their bills. They've never been through this before. Insurance companies are calling them and telling them that their claims are fraudulent and that there's this problem and that problem. They don't know what to do. So, I'm a therapist a lot of times. And, I get crying clients all the time and I have to, deal with that and try to help them through that. And so what I would say is that it's easy to say lawyers are slimy until you need one, until you're the person who has who can't work and pay their bills, or whose daughter or mother or sister has been seriously injured. And the insurance company is telling them that, sorry, we can't do anything about it. When you're in those shoes, and, I can't say this to a jury at trial, you're really not allowed to do that, but I have my ways of implying that. But when you're in the shoes of the injured party, it's a different ballgame. And you're not thinking about, I heard that my friend got sued for something that was not so valid. So I would encourage, golden rule applies basically. And it's the same thing for your business. When your business gets robbed or taken by someone who breached the contract with, in a material breach or real breach of a contract, and your life savings is gone, I don't think you're going to be saying, I'm not going to call a lawyer because, I've heard stories of slimy lawyers. So again, sort of a long answer, but I really thank you for asking that, because if I could do my part in squashing those sort of myths, I'm happy to do so, because, just imagine, it's you in the injured party's seat. And I think you might have a different point of view.
That's interesting. And so as you went through some of this, transition, did you have a lot of people that, it sounds like your whole family was in law. So I'm guessing from your family didn't have a lot of backlash. But did you have, as you went through it, did you have much like friends saying, hey, that's a silly idea when you went into law school even, or when you started your own firm or anything like that? Or did you not really have a lot of that per se?
No, I don't think so. I mean, for what it's worth, I'm a Jewish guy from Long Island. There's a lot of us that are lawyers and our families, like I said. So, I didn't really hear.
If you weren't a lawyer.
Yeah, almost. But no, I don't think so, because again, a lot of people understand that you could do a lot of stuff with a legal degree, with a law degree, and I think we hear every now and then an entrepreneur is a lawyer. Like David Meltzer, for example. And so I didn't really hear that. I mean, I think that my field might get a little bit of that sort of backlash, which is, again, we're not getting such high salaries. And so, again, I'm looking around after being in law school being an attorney for a couple of years. And I'm looking at people who didn't go to law school, didn't go to graduate school, sometimes they didn't even go to college, and they're making, 2 times my salary. So the backlash is sort of like that. If you went to law school,
more, you could make more money.
Yeah, you went to law school because you thought it was, a high paying career. And, if you're just going to stay on this path, it's going to be a hard time, achieving your financial dreams, which is, thank God I formed my own firm and I could really, eat what I kill, so to speak. But, in terms of questioning that, I would, looking back, I would think that might have been the only thing I heard is like, well, you may not be making the kind of money that you want. But, I guess that's only more motivation to kind of go kill some, meals to eat, so to speak.
That sounds funny. We're like, oh my gosh. I love it. Yeah. So, a lot of people do get into law, at least in Canada. I've heard this. And, they go through all the schooling and it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. A lot of them are in debt by the time they get out. And then they go into, working in a practice. And doctors are the same, by the way. And they're working like 70, 80, 90 hours a week and really not making much at all. Like they're literally, some of them sleeping under the desk and stuff like that. And a lot of them, like I've talked to some of my lawyer friends up here, and I'm curious if it's any different in the States. And she said to me, she runs a law practice up here. And she said to me, 6 out of 10 lawyers don't want to be lawyers. They didn't know what it was involved. So, if someone's listening to this and they're thinking of getting a lawyer, because I think a lot of people want to be lawyers and doctors based on that high income. Let's give us the facts. Like what are the facts of how long does it take the average lawyer to get a student loan paid off and actually possibly like get partnership or run, in your case, you started your own, but I know partnership is a big thing. What's the actual facts of someone actually going from starting law school to getting where they're thinking they're making that, like, let's say 200, 250,000, because I think that's a number that, you threw out and I've heard people say, how long does that actually take for the average person?
Right. So let me touch on a couple points on there. I can really only speak to my personal experiences, but I think it's important to differentiate the types of law that you're going into. So when I mentioned those 200 resumes that I applied to, and you're talking about big corporate law firms, you're going to make a lot of money right out of law school. That's the 200. I can't even imagine what it's up to now with bonuses and stuff like that. But you're going to be worked to the bone, and you're going to, you're not going to have too much opportunity to enjoy the money that you're making. And you're going to work really, really long hours. And the work itself is not so rewarding, in my opinion, from what I've heard. So it's a lot of reading contracts and, just proofreading stuff and stuff like that. But if that's what you like, then sure. So, the one thing I would say is that the key term, if you want to do it, is delayed gratification that we hear. So, you got to understand that you're not really going to achieve your financial dreams right away. And when you're young, you think you will. So if you can delay that gratification and just be a sponge those first couple of years and just learn as much as you can and not think about, the cars that you want, or you want to move into a house for a little bit longer, that is, that's the key. That's been the key for me big time, because, it took a lot longer for me to get to where I wanted to be because of that. So that's sort of an ancillary point. But to get back to your main question, then to differentiate from the commercial field to my field. So my field, your salary is going to be pretty low to start, and for a while. And so even, a lot of the employers in my field look at employees and even associate attorneys as expenses, where I believe you should be looking at them as investments. Because if you're looking, same as marketing or anything like that, because if you're looking at employees as expenses, you don't treat them right, you don't pay them right, and you give them such small raises or bonuses every year, they're going to leave. And you're going to have to find a new person. You're going to have to train them again. Whereas if you treat them right, like a part of the family, they're going to grow with you. And if you pay them well, I'm shocked, by the way, at the lack of incentivization. That's, to me, what everything is about. So in my field, let me break it down again also. There's really good firms that'll say, if, cases that you resolve, that you settle, that you try to verdict, we're going to give you a little piece of that. So you have that financial incentivization to max out every case, to do a great job, to stay with the firm because they're going to reward you. But a lot of the firms, like what I worked at, they said, here's your salary. We'll talk in a year about a couple $1,000 raise. Now, there's also firms that are going to treat you poorly, that'll pay you a little bit extra. We call those the golden handcuffs, because you think, I can't get this salary at another firm. I got to stay here because of the money. And so let's now talk about the good firms. So if you're at a good firm that is incentivizing you, you may be able to get on a partnership track where, you're a named partner, not a so-called equity partner. Maybe in 5-6 years, maybe a little bit more. Truthfully, like you said, I started my own firm, so I can't speak to that. Some people start their own firms right out of law school. I don't think that's the best method personally. I think you should learn from people for a couple of years at least and then start. But I don't think you had to wait, whatever it was that I waited 7, 8, 9 years. So, the facts differ depending on what field you're in. But to kind of circle home, I think, to the original point is about most lawyers not knowing what it takes and leaving the field of law. If I had started at one of those law firms where I was making $250,000 a year, doing the contract work, I think it's a safe bet. I'm not a lawyer right now, to be honest. So I sort of fell in love with what I did without really knowing that I was going to, because of the fact that I'm always fighting for the underdog, that, these people, again, are in such terrible shape that I can take some pride. I can get fulfillment and happiness in addition to financial reward from getting their lives back on track. And, I just settled a $5 million case, which is our biggest case. My client lived out of state, so we hadn't seen each other since the settlement. He came into town this week, and, I may post a video of our hug when we saw each other. But I can promise you that no corporate lawyers are hugging their clients or more so getting hugged from their clients the way that my client and I hugged each other. So, I would say to people, forget about the money, find something, and it sounds hokey, I know. Find a field of law that you can get that fulfillment at, and then the money's going to come to you and you're going to have it all. So that's a good way to answer that. Sorry, different points there, but hope I answered it.
Short and form, this is what I got out of it. It takes about 14 to 18 years to really become successful and get partnership, because that's from this time you start school, it's about 7 years. And then you've been working about 7, 8 years. Yeah. You said that's kind of like, so just so anyone that's listening, that's, like I said, a lot of people, if you're younger, especially like, I want to be a lawyer, you're looking at 14-ish years before you get to that partnership or opening your own firm, which is what a lot of people want to do. And if you're just in it for the money, it could take you a long time to get there. And so think about that before you start the 7 years of schooling. Yep. And I just think the awareness of, like I said, I think people should talk to someone that's been in the business 10 years longer than them and see if that's really where they want to go before they invest a lot of time 100%. And money into the schooling. Because then you're kind of like, well, now what do I do? Yep. And then you get those jobs. So like, is it really your passion? Is it really something you want to do? And if it is, because I can tell it is for Matt, well, then great. Like, we want you in that field, obviously, because we need people that are passionate about helping people in the law industry. Where do you see your vision? What's your vision for your firm for the next 5 or 10 years, Matt?
Yeah. So thanks for asking that too. So, I would love to, we're trying and we're doing it now of scaling up the firm, but scaling it up, keeping our core values in mind. So unless we can maintain our, what I call extreme customer and client service where we're being proactive always in calling our clients and keeping them informed and keeping them updated and making sure they're happy, as opposed to waiting for them to call and say, hey, what's going on? As long as we can do that while achieving, the results that we are, because fortunately we're really achieving some great results. We're not settling cases on the cheap. We're maxing them out, for lack of a better phrase. So as long as we can do that, and keep those core values, we're going to be taking on more clients that have solid cases and need our help, and we're going to add the team members to do that. So I want to really help more and more of the catastrophically and seriously injured people who desperately need our help. Sort of as opposed to people who are hurt but not as serious. So we're going to try to take on more of those major issues and major clients. And also, I think it's worth mentioning, because you mentioned, talking to someone who's been doing it before. Part of what we're doing, and I think you and I know that, sort of the coaching world is a little, saturated here, but with people who are just coaching without having ever done anything. We're going to probably be developing a coaching program where I can help and mentor younger lawyers or people who are just in law school now, or people who have been out, who are lesser in the journey than I am, where I can help them get to where I am. And again, I'm nowhere near where I want to be, as I just told you. We're just getting started. But if I had spoken to someone in my shoes now when I was starting out, I would be where I am now a long time ago. Sure. And there's a lot of lessons that I learned the hard way that unfortunately I did, but I can help people not learn those lessons. And, I've had interns, and one of them is now my associate now, who, again, I'm working on personal development on, giving them, magic of thinking big, the power of one more. We're talking about these things. So, I'm developing younger attorneys, both, in their fitness journey, in their mindset journey, and obviously as a lawyer or even just as an entrepreneur. So where I see myself also is really forming a community of people who can help each other, of young lawyers or even older lawyers that are early in their journey, who can help each other, and I can help them. So the firm's going to grow, and we're going to try to help grow young attorneys with our coaching program. I
love it. Super awesome. In wrapping up, I always have 3 final questions, and then anything that we didn't touch on that we want to leave our listeners with. So first, awesome. Final question is, if someone is looking for their purpose, what is one sentence you would say to help them find it?
One sentence looking for their purpose. I guess if you could think of someone or a group of people or someone who needs help at something that you have a skill at providing the solution at, and that you enjoy that skill, I think that's your passion. Because listen, my passion is sports for the most part. I love, playing and watching sports. Was I going to be a professional athlete? Probably not. But I learned that I have a passion for helping people, and helping people and fighting. I've said this numerous times in the past. I love arguing sports also. So that passion for arguing sports, I translated to arguing for helping people, get justice. So I realized I had that kind of, that's a problem that had as a solution that I enjoyed giving that solution. And, lo and behold, we can make, a lot of money giving that solution. So that's what I would encourage people to do.
Awesome. Second question, what's your favorite quote and why?
Favorite quote, and I would like to bring this company back, but I don't know if you remember it, but growing up in the 90s, I guess there was a company called No Fear. One of the No Fear t-shirts, quotes that has always stuck with me, I guess, is winners never quit and quitters never win. So, obviously sometimes there's times to get off a journey if it's not being successful, but if you're just quitting, you're never going to win. So I guess that's the one that pops in my mind.
Awesome. And final question, what's one word or sentence you want on your gravestone?
One word or sentence. I guess he was an amazing husband, father, son, uncle, brother, which ironically was what we just put on my father's tombstone because we lost him a couple years ago. But everything else is all ancillary. But if I could be a great dad and husband and family member, that's a life, successful life that I'll be happy with. That's
awesome. So real quick, if you run into someone in a coffee shop and they're like, "Hey, Matt, that was awesome. I learned a lot." Was there anything, final paragraph that you could leave someone with that you just think we didn't touch on today?
I guess not. And I say this a lot, and I think I kind of alluded to it, but if there's, I hate the word hack because I think everyone's looking for shortcuts these days, but there's a hack to success that I've learned. And I know it sounds corny and hokey, and a lot of people say it, but when you stop chasing money and you start trying to only add value and to help people, and you do that for long enough, it's not going to happen right away, but at some point, the money is going to start chasing you. And again, that it's hard to believe that to be true, especially when you're young and you don't have money. But if you can do the delayed gratification that I spoke about, and if you could focus on learning, not just adding value, but learning ways to really do that, the money's going to chase you, and you're going to be a successful and happy individual. So that's that.
I love that. That's awesome. Guys, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, follow Matt. We'll have his information in the show notes. Feel free to reach out to him. I know he's super helpful. And let's go out there. Let's change one starfish or one life at a time together. If we can change one life at a time together, we can change the world. Thanks so much for being on, Matt.
Thank you so much. And I look forward to following your journey as well. I can't wait to see where you go.